happy today. I am William Brown from IamWilliamBrown.com. This is Disconnect to Connect, one word conversations. My glasses, my eyes look a little funny here. I don't know if it's a Monday morning or what. Usually I try to have my show glasses on, and I have so many shows that I forgot where those glasses they've gotten away from me. So I have glasses that I see in and glasses um, that I used to have on air. So maybe tomorrow I can do that. I am so excited about of this show today is because it kind of goes along with my talk around labels and self discovery, and and self love, and just kind of that awareness of that. And so when we look at the word, you know, personal, you know, what comes up and how that kind of relates to, our life, that is something that I try to look at and try to understand. And so as I do, I invite one of my friends to come in and we have a conversation. Good morning.
Morning, Bill. I know you as Bill, so I'll be calling you Bill today.
Well,
Um,
that's great. As I tell people, I am my labels and I'm not my labels. So most of the people out there, I introduce myself as Bill. So I've just taken on William, even though I was named William, at birth. I've just taken that on in the last few years. So I'm still getting used to it sometimes. So sometimes when people call me William, I'll go, oh yeah, they're talking about me. So this is the opportunity where I let my guests introduce themselves, however feels comfortable to them.
my name's Neal Woodson. I am a teacher, a coach, an author, and a speaker. And the main areas that I work around are leadership development, customer and employee experience improvement, all within the business community. And currently, I work for a large company in event production in the hospitality industry. And I'm also a husband, father, all of those good things. I've been married for 30 years to a wonderful woman most of the time. I'm usually the one that's I'm usually the one that's not so wonderful. But all of those things. And I really, really appreciate you having me on today. And it's been a pleasure. Just so people know, Bill and I got to know each other over the phone.
Right,
And and then finally he's up north somewhere at a
right.
conference, taking a class somewhere. He's coming through. I live in Baltimore. He's coming through to go home, and he lives in the Carolinas. And he says, "Hey, I'm stopping there. Can we have a cup of coffee?" And so we sat and had one of the best conversations I've had in my life with
Right. Wow.
anybody. For about 2 or 3 hours, we sat in a Starbucks coffee just off the interstate
Right.
and talked, and it was fantastic. And ever since then, we've been good friends. So pleasure to be on
Absolutely.
here.
No, it was one of those things, from a mutual friend said, "Hey, I think you guys would connect," and he was right. So when the word personal comes up for you, how does that land?
You just so people understand. A few days before you go on air, Bill sends you your word, and I kind of, when he first asked me to be on here, I sat in fear and trepidation, thinking, "Oh God, he's going to throw some word out there that just it's going to make me dig and dig and dig." And through personal, I was like, "Oh my gosh, 100 things popped into my head
Right.
immediately." Um, so what were those 100 things? Probably the first thing that occurred to me with personal was the word personalization.
Hmm.
And because I work so much with leaders and managers and things like that, who deal with customers, personalizing things is a big deal.
Hmm.
And the more I thought about it, the more I thought about the fact that personalizing things has become more and more of a big deal. Um, and I think, and this is no research behind this, but I believe maybe it has something to do with all the social media that's out there, your
Mm,
ability to be that, to have your 15 minutes of fame. And more people want the spotlight to be on them. When
right.
I'm in front of you, I want to be, I want you to see me as that unique human being that I am. And I
Right.
think there's goods and bads to all of that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I totally get that. It is, for me, is that it goes back to a recognition of self, and it's like most of the times when personal comes up for me, is that you hear don't take it personally, or don't take it so personal, or don't or trying to. It's like it's it's like in our culture, it seems like we are told not to make it about ourselves. But I've been in the industry for a while, the audiovisual pro AV industry, and the first job that I got fired from, before I got fired, the manager said, nothing personal, but we're going to have to let you know go. And it's like, really? That is very personal, right?
Well, well, what's interesting is, and it was funny, you and I were talking earlier, and I mentioned, I do my best thinking in the shower. And so one of the things that popped into my head was the movie You've Got Mail
Right,
with Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks. Because there's this great scene where Tom Hanks owns this big giant bookstore conglomerate, and Meg Ryan owns this little tiny local children's bookstore. And
right,
Tom Hanks' business puts her out of business.
right,
But he's also in love with her, so he goes to visit her, and he tells her, "Hey, look, it wasn't personal; it was business." And she
right,
turned around and said, "I don't know what that means."
right,
Because if anything, it ought to be is personal. She
right,
says it was personal to me, and
right,
that to me is one of the great scenes and lines in the movies
right,
because of the lesson. And the lesson
right,
being just about everything is personal,
right,
and the problems that we have. And wow, this last week has really brought a lot of problems to the fore. And
right,
they're not new problems; they're old problems, but they've just reached that boiling point.
right,
And if anything, I think it really has struck me recently that maybe the biggest problems that we're having are that we're not making things personal.
right, right,
We're not understanding each other. We're not getting to know each other. I mean, if you're in business and you want to personalize things for a customer, you have to get to know them. But
right,
if you are in a personal relationship, overusing the word personal, but if you're in
right,
a relationship outside of the work environment, think about you've got to get to know people. You've got
right.
to.
Right. And so how this is the balance that I have. How can I be aware of the personal, be aware of the person that's in front of me, and still recognize the collective, the larger, you know, people, right? Within that, and too often, and I think that's my conversation around labels. Also, is that we sometimes we are talking, labels are talking, and not people are talking. So if it is, you know, um, black people, white people, male, female, all of those labels, we speak from that instead of Neil and Bill or William or Sam or whatever. If I don't get to the person, I only see you as that label, and then what I make that label means will determine how I relate to you, and it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with you.
And I think it can be hard to separate those things, but I think that you've just hit on what may be at the crux of the issue. Recently been looking at a bunch of different things revolving around all this stuff that's going on,
Right,
and there's so much of you're a racist, you're a racist, you're a racist, you're a racist, and all that's going back and forth. No, I'm
right,
not. Yes, you are. No, you're not. again, a label, right? We're
Right.
putting labels on people and we're making assumptions. And I think that's a
Right.
big piece of all of it. We're
Right.
making huge assumptions.
Right.
Bill, you're black. That means you are. Neil, you're
Right.
white. That means you are blank, whatever
Right.
that is. And those are all assumptions.
Right.
And what we really need to do is to sit down with people and communicate and talk to each other. There's a great book out by a woman. Her name is Jennifer Eberhardt, and she is a
Okay.
psychologist at Stanford. The book's called Biased,
Okay.
and she has done a lot of research and found out a lot of things, and they're controversial. She is African American, and she she talks about one of the findings that she's had is that one of the things that we need to do is put people together, not separate people, not
Right.
get into separate groups, not into, okay, we're the anti-racist and you're the racist, or you're black and you're white, or you're green and you're purple.
Right.
We need to get all of them together in the same spot and
Right.
have dialogue,
Right.
and real dialogue, honest dialogue, where we can actually, and you don't have to be PC, but we actually
Right.
talk about, this is how I feel about it. I
Right.
disagree with you. Or where can we find points of agreement? Where can
Right.
we, how can I know you better as Bill? How do I get
Right.
to know you better? How do I get to know what's under the surface of Bill so that
Right.
I can understand where you're coming from rather than saying, well, you're from, you live in North Carolina, right, Bill?
South Carolina now.
Oh, South
I
Carolina. Okay.
I moved further down.
Okay. So, Bill, you're African American. You're from South Carolina. You, uh, you, I know a couple of things about you. Therefore, I know you, Bill, and I don't.
Right.
I don't
Right.
know the depth of Bill.
Right. Right. It's I totally get that, and that's a big challenge for me. I have a practice within, living beyond our labels. And I think within what you were saying about getting together and having conversations, there's a step of ownership. Just own your label, whatever that label is. Have an appreciation of that label. And it's like, I think sometimes we don't really get to the place where we can say that, hey, I am proud of my blackness, because we feel that it is going to upset from people, or people might not understand what that means, or all that other kind of stuff. But it takes, the only way that people really understand our ownership of something is to have a conversation within that. And it seems like people don't want to take the time to understand, with what does you owning your whiteness mean? What does being proud of your heritage mean, without all of the
Label.
horrible things, right? Without all the other things that it means, and that has shown up in this country and other places around the world.
Or the things that we assume that it means.
Right.
Like for you turn around and say, I'm proud of my blackness. Well, I could assume 100 things from that. I grew up in the South. I
Right.
grew up in the South in the 60s. In the I was born in 63. So, I remember, believe it or not, I remember when Martin Luther King was assassinated. Now, I was 5 years old, but it was such a big deal. And it was on the news, and I could see the upset, the emotion that was involved in it. And I think it just stuck in my mind. It stuck in my head. And I remember when Bobby Kennedy got shot, and those things stick in your head.
Right.
But we make lots of assumptions. Bill's proud of his blackness, and fine. But I could make a bunch of assumptions as to what that means. Well, Bill's militant. Bill's this,
Right.
that. I could make all these assumptions without knowing, well, Bill, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? I don't
Right.
understand what that means.
Right. And that's where the personal shows up, because it's taken me a long time for me to appreciate or understand that, how my feelings are my feelings, my understanding or my understanding, and it doesn't have to be in line with every other black person, or every other male, and every other thing that's happening, and sometimes it gets very dicey. To have a conversation with. Sometimes it feels like other labels that think that you're letting them down, or you're ignoring how it's personal to them.
And those labels get frustrating, right? I mean, um, my son, for example, my son just graduated from college. He played lacrosse, college lacrosse. He played high school lacrosse, which I know you're in South Carolina, but I think they play a little bit of lacrosse in South Carolina. If we were talking about this in Iowa, I would probably have to explain what lacrosse is. Um, no, he played lacrosse, and there is an assumption about lacrosse players, about
Right.
who they are and what they're about, um, on and on. And he told me early on, he says, I don't want to be labeled as a lacrosse player. I don't
Hmm.
want that to be the thing that denotes who I am and what I am. He said, that's only one little part of me. And I thought that was a great thing to say. And honestly, it fits exactly in with what we're talking about, how
Right.
we make these judgments on people based on a label that we stick on them, um, which could be based on nothing other than
Right.
our past experience with
Right.
the green person, or whatever.
Right.
Um, so I don't know. That's when you brought up personal, so much stuff came up in my head this week or this past week about what does that mean,
Right.
and we speak about these labels. I mean, this so much of what's boiling out there. I think it just comes from so much of that without sitting down with people and having empathy for people.
Right.
I think that's a big part of personal is
Right.
having empathy for others.
I think another part of your work, of customer service, I really, for me, it is really personalized service. Most of the times when I feel that I was taken care of, if I was at a Ritz Carlton or if I was somewhere, it's that systematic personalized service that made me feel like I was seen and heard and appreciated. And I think that's really what customer service is, instead of this, well, you're paying me money and I need to, give it to you in a timely fashion type of thing.
I mean, the whole difference to me between there's two kinds of sports. One's functional and one's hospitality. I kind of lump them in those two groups. And functional is that service where um, I'm here, I'm getting a paycheck, I'm following the script.
Right.
This is what I have to do to get you what I have to get you and to get you out the door.
Right.
Right. So, hi, I'm going to shake hands, I'm going to smile, I'm going to do the 5 things I'm supposed to do and say, and
Right.
and it can be very kind and it can be very nice, but it's not authentic. It's
Right.
fake. It's a facade. Whereas when we get to what I call hospitality, hospitality is about being proactive and authentic. It's
Right.
service you deliver to somebody because you want to. I see
Right.
Bill come in the door and I say, "Good afternoon, sir. It's so good to see you." And that's not. I am glad to see you. I'm happy you're here,
Right.
and I'm proactive. I'm going to ask to do things for you that you didn't even ask for. You didn't. You don't. You didn't even think about. Can I take your bags? Can I put them on the cart? Can I? Here's the front desk. This is Angela, and she's going to take care of you at the front desk. Blah blah
Right.
blah blah blah.
Right.
Why do I do that? I don't want to. It's not to get a tip necessarily. It's just because I want to. You know.
Right.
And to me, that's a huge difference. But that's again, we feel that, and that goes back to that personalization, right?
Right. Right. And I think we want it, but in some cases, as I mentioned before, there is this resistance that will be too personal, that will want it too much, that will that will demand that people constantly see us, that are constantly recognize, then it's like, then it moves into the selfish. Then there's
Creepy.
creepy, right? Or something. So what is that balance of personal, personal and personalized, and just really, I guess, just showing up authentically.
I don't you think that you can be? I think that's part of being authentic is being willing to understand that and reading
Okay.
that. You know, reading the fact that there are some people that want to be left alone. I mean, I'm that guy. When I go into Home Depot or Lowe's, I'm a homeowner, so I go into Home Depot and Lowe's a lot. And so you go in there, and I'm the guy. Just leave me alone until I need somebody.
Right.
You know, and if they read that, if they do a great job of reading that, I'm very comfortable. I'm very happy.
Right.
And I think that's a good marker for a quality delivery of service is when people are reading the people, when they come in the door. You automatically know the people who don't do that. When every customer that walks in the door gets the "Good morning, how are you? Good morning, how are you?" And it's like a
Right.
robot, right?
Right.
As opposed to slightly different greetings, but they're reading you and they're getting who you are. And this is the person that doesn't want to be spoken to. This is the person that does. This is the person who wants me to hold their hand the entire way.
Right.
There's reading that goes involved in that.
Right there, and that works at home too. There are some moments where it's like, well, I didn't read the room right. Yeah, it's like take two, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I said, my wife and I have been married almost 30 years, and there are times when you can read each other's minds to a certain degree.
Right.
It's like she'll say something, and I'm like, God, I was just thinking that exact same thing.
Right.
But then there's plenty of times when you're not thinking the same thing, but you
Right.
think you are,
Right. Right.
right?
And those are fun conversations, right?
Those are fun conversations where you really aren't talking. You're talking about two different things, and you can keep that going. The thing is, the talent lies in being able to do that for about 10, 15 minutes before
Right.
you realize we're not talking about the same thing, are we?
Right.
You know,
Right.
um, but that's right to your point. I'm not reading this room. I'm not reading this
Right.
person. I'm not real. And part of that's probably because you're not really listening, right?
Right. Right. Absolutely. And it's like, I've rejected or kind of delayed the conversation about self discovery and, self love and self care and all that. One, because of our hang up, I think our cultural hang up of being selfish, or appearing, or people assuming, or that we're being selfish. But I just find it very interesting. The only time, or one of the few times, it's not the only, one of the few times when we are encouraged to think of ourselves first is in the instructions on an airplane in an emergency. You know, you know. Other than that, don't think about yourself, right?
They say make sure you put that mask on. You put it on yourself first, and then
Right.
pick the child you love the most and put it on their mask.
Right, right. It's like other than that, there is this outwardly collective type of thing that you're a good person because you're thinking about everybody else. But I think it's confusing and it's backwards and it causes sometimes at moments that we're in where we want to be a part of the larger conversation or the larger discussion, but it's very difficult to bring it to the personal level. It's very difficult because anytime I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I really I hate getting in the habit of speaking for other people. Anytime I want to kind of connect the dots and not just say, what's in it for me, but why is this important to me? How is this important to me? How can I contribute to this? Anytime that I try to bring it to that level, it sometimes I feel like I'm being insensitive. I'm being dismissive of the collective conversation that's happening. I recognize that, even with the pandemic, that, when people would say we're all in this together, I was like, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like we're all in this together. There's a lot of people that are experiencing this on a totally different level, and are really are acting as if this is not happening at all, right? So it is just how do I make it personal, but still recognize that within that personal way of me seeing things, acknowledge how it's showing up for other people, and also be aware of how it's showing up collectively.
A lot of, and that every one of those people is very valid for them.
Right.
And that, you bring up such a great point that this is a really, really tough issue, particularly these days. I think we are more and more focused, maybe focused isn't the right word, but narcissism has become such a talking point these days. For a whole variety of reasons. And this isn't just because of Donald Trump. And I'm one of those people that believes he's a big narcissist. Um,
Right.
it's hard not to see that. But I think it was before him, before Donald Trump. We were heading in the direction of narcissism for
Right.
a while, being a very narcissistic culture for a long time. There
Right.
was a study done in the 2000s where they analyzed song lyrics from popular songs. And what they found was that over a 10-year period, I think it was 10 years, 9 or 10 years, that there was a rise in the use of the words them, you and them, or no, I'm sorry, a rise in the use of the words I, me, and mine,
Right.
and a decline in the use of the words you and your and them. A much more of a focus on me in the
Right.
lyrics than there were on others.
Right.
Now, you could talk that down, and you could arguably say that that's inconsequential. It doesn't really mean anything. But I don't know. I've always seen art is a reflection of culture. Art is a
Right.
reflection of times, and we've seen that over history. And I could say that because I was a music major in college. Um,
Right.
but I think that we have become much more narcissistic these days, and we're really thinking a lot more about ourselves these days. And so when we bring this up and we talk about, what's the balance between thinking about yourself and thinking about others, now it's become scary. You look at yourself, am I thinking
Right.
about myself too much? Am I a narcissist? Is it all about
Right.
me? Um, I
Right.
think I think you have to have this balance. I think you have to be able to say, you got to do some things for yourself. You got to think about
Right.
yourself. As long as you're not
Right.
denying other people, you're not
Right.
pushing other people out of the picture completely.
Right. Right. For me, how I break it down for myself is the word maturity. I think the difference between selfish and basically caring for oneself, or discovering oneself, is a level of maturity. And I think there's a number of things that stun people growing up, right? It could be trauma, it could be just one being rewarded for bad behavior. I think in some cases, our president is the way he is because his behavior, or how he shows up in the world, he achieved a level of success that way. So the story that he tells himself, that's how I am successful. So this is me, and this is what I would do. That's a very, not being a psychologist or anything like that, but that's how it occurs to me. And I think too often there is the only way that we can balance how we look at ourselves and how we see ourselves with other people on this journey alone with others is our level of maturity.
Right.
Because if we're just so concerned with ourselves, and always, well, what am I going to get out of this, or how can I shine, or all that other kind of stuff, that is not taking care of self. I think it's the awareness. it's like in meditation or mindfulness, and we had a conversation, last week about that. The being aware of being aware, right? Of your
Notice,
awareness,
notice what you
and I
notice when you notice it.
noticing what you notice. Right, great, thank you. You helped me. So it's like how I kind of heard it, right? So I can go to the tape, but I mean, and I think that's what self discovery and self awareness is: being aware or notice how I'm showing up, and notice that I'm aware of that. And if you don't like that, make changes, right?
Or,
No,
or, or if you're hurting someone, if that's hurting
right,
someone, it's definitely a point where you need to look. Wait a minute, no, that's probably not
right,
the right thing to do. Um,
right,
but you can't deny that we do need that time. We do need things for ourselves. We do need time for
right,
ourselves. We do need, and those of us with partners and spouses and what have you, we know that that's a difficult balance.
right,
I need time to myself. You come home from work or whatever, and you sit down and say, I need time to myself. You
right.
know,
Yeah,
and
it's like that personal space. I think in some cases, because of pandemic, our space has expanded to at least 6 feet, right, or more. Some people will add on. It's like, okay, 6 feet plus however far I wanted you from, that I had before all of this.
for some
So
things, it's
it
become an excuse, right? It's become a way for us to say,
right,
it's social distancing. I really don't want to talk to them anyway, but it's social distancing, right?
right,
So
right. It's an excuse, another way, and that's um, it is. I think, like was said earlier, it is all personal. If we don't get to a level that we embrace the our life, I don't want to say the personalness, I don't know if that's a word, of our life, but we can't show up for other people, we can't show up for ourselves, we can't show up in our work if there is not that understanding and awareness. We talk about finding our purpose, finding what we're passionate about, making a contribution. I don't think we can do any of those things if we don't make it personal. If
no one has a problem with when you're sick and you go up to your bedroom, you get crawl into bed and you take that cup of tea with you and you sit there and you're all quiet and I don't want anybody else to be around and everybody understands.
right,
Everybody's fine with that. They'll walk around the house, they'll tap dance around the house quietly, and people, because you need your time, your space to get well. Why aren't we doing that when you're well?
right,
We need to.
well,
I think we need to respect that of people when we're well as much as we do when we're sick, and and
right,
and maybe we wouldn't get sick.
right, yeah. That is something. And is it a part of our societal conditioning that you know if if we look well, there's an expectation, there's an assumption that everything is fine, you should show up fully and all that other kind of stuff. But I mean, we've conditioned, I'll say myself, I'm not speaking for anybody else, to having the appearance of looking well when I'm not well, when I'm hurting and when or anything. So it's like, so I act as if I'm well, not being well, and being received as if I am well, and causing more pain to myself and possibly pain to others. How that, and I think the only way that, I think you mentioned it before, that we really get to a place where we know where people really are is by coming together, is by dropping those labels and going, hey man, it doesn't feel right. You don't, something's going on. What's going on? And I think because of that relationship and because of the proximity, then the truth will come out. But we're not close enough to each other to really understand, hear, appreciate the personal, of our lives. And so we miss it, and then so because we miss it, we make assumptions about what's going on.
Well, when you think we spend a third of our lives, and in many cases, much more than a third of our lives, work in the workforce. And we have over decades and decades, we've made the workplace a place where you can't bring that to work.
Right.
Where you need to come to work and take off your human hat, put on your automaton hat, and just work.
Right.
And we don't, and I've heard it. I've been in workplaces where, we don't talk about that here. That's not appropriate for work.
Right.
Instead of, wait a minute, we're here for a third of our lives and we work
Right.
together every single day. And I can't sit down and say, I got a problem. Or worse, or better
Right.
yet, where we have
Right.
managers who come in and say, hey, I've noticed some things are kind of off. Can we talk for a minute? Are you okay? Why
Right.
why are we making workplaces like that?
Right.
Because
I,
so many people go to work. If you look out the window on a Monday morning, it's like that's like they drove the prison truck down the street and they're loading it up. And on Friday afternoon,
right.
it's like, hey, we're out for summer break, right? And all the kids
Right.
are running out of school. Why? Because they go to work and it's miserable. And it's miserable because we've
Right.
turned it into an inhuman place. It's not humane anymore. And
Right.
we need
Wow.
to get back to that because, and hopefully that's, if there's any silver lining, or at least one
Right.
silver lining out of this pandemic, it would be maybe we've started to see people as human, because now we've had to talk to
Right.
them, talk to them at home. And I see
Right.
you're at home and you see the pictures on the wall and I see your kid run by and I hear the dog barking and now I see you as a human being, not just this
Right.
cog in a wheel that comes in every Monday morning.
Right. I that is my coaching in a nutshell. Is that I label myself a business life coach, and I have business conversations with a listening for your life, because most of the times when we don't show up at work or in our business or in the relationships is because how life is occurring to us. And if I try to have, 5 steps of being productive or 10 ways of growing your business, and have no listening for everything else that's happening in your life, you're not going to hear it. You're not, it's not going to connect. And it is really something to have someone that I'm coaching just admit that life is kicking my behind right now, and I don't want to let anybody at my office know about that, but I don't want to lose my job because of it, So it's like that balancing act.
That goes back to so much of getting make the workplace a safe environment.
Right,
And that means if you're the manager, you need to create that environment where people feel safe talking about those things. And they know I'm not going to get fired because I'm going to tell you that I've got some problems at home, or my
right,
kid's having a problem with drugs, or whatever it is.
right,
And this is affecting how I'm dealing with work.
right,
And it's when the manager turns around and says, "I want to help you with that. I want to give you. Do you need time? What do you need? Because I know you're a
right,
great performer. I know what you've got in there. It's just that you're
right,
running on half a tank right now. And what do we need to do to get you back?" And
right,
I think if we create workplaces like that, wow, what are we going to get out of a team? We're going to get teams that don't want to ever leave. We're going to get teams that
right,
will go to bat for you in the worst of conditions, rather than,
right,
oh God, thank God it's Friday and all I want to do is go home and I get 2 days to go do something else that I like, you know.
right.
Um,
And I think you'll get teams and workers that will show up for their customers more, right?
oh,
And better. And it's
absolutely
like
true.
all of those things.
Happy employees will create happier customers. That's for sure.
Right. And it's just, like I said, we'll go back again. It's all personal. And the more that we recognize that, the more that we appreciate that, the more that we're in our lives. We're too often we have this segmentation I have I have a work life. I have a because that's where I was. I have a work life. I have a home life. I have a church life. I have all these different lives, um, and they're like competing with each other. I don't believe in. I don't want to say I don't believe. I totally understand the work life balance type of conversation. However, I work to kind of adopt just being present to my life. The more that I'm present at work, I can get things done at work. The more that I'm present at home, things will work out at home. The more that I'm present in the relationships that I have, that I'm there. I I want to stop living my life like my physical body being somewhere that my head is not, my heart is not, my heart, my intentions,
Well,
are not.
now you're back to that mindfulness. Notice what you notice while you're noticing it, right?
Right,
And being, I'm at home and I'm fully immersed in being at home, and I'm at work and I'm immersed in what's happening right now at work.
right,
Um,
right,
and maybe that's the perfect place to be. I don't know how you get there. I mean,
right,
that's the stuff where you climb a mountain and sit at the foot of some guy and with a long beard, and he tells you, you
right,
know,
right.
gives you all those secrets,
I
right?
right. I think it's within us, and I think within my coaching, I try to help people discover, their path. I forget the gentleman's name that said, if you can see the path, it's not yours, right? You create your own path, and I think I really adopt that, and that's the personal level of our path that I think we should take or be willing to take and move forward within
I
it.
don't think you've got a choice. I don't think you got a
Wow.
choice. I mean, it's you can't take somebody else's path because you're not them. As much as you try, you read the biography of somebody great and say, "I want to be like them." You're still going to have
Right.
a different way. You're still going to go a different road. And if we come
Right.
full circle back to kind of where we started, we said, what's personal? What is personal about? It's about personalization. And we think that there are billions of people on this planet and not one is alike. Not
Right.
one. Not one. That to me is
Right.
completely amazing. That even identical twins has something that's different, whether they like different music or they talk about different
Right.
things or they're interested in different things. One's sporty, one's not. Well,
Right.
we're all different.
Right.
And to me, that's just so amazing. That's just completely amazing. Billions. What are the chances that not one are the same?
Wow. We could talk about this for hours, but I'm sure there's a lot of other personal things that right, that have our attention for the day. Um, that was a great kind of wrap up or kind of understanding that we recognize that there's a lot of people out there and they're all different, but too often we expect the sameness out of people because of location, because of the hue of their skin, or how much money they have or don't have,
We
and
make
but
assumptions
we're all different.
about that.
You're
We
right.
make huge assumptions about people. And if we could get beyond that and get beyond, thinking, I know you and I don't,
Right.
um, and sit down and just say, I need to get to know you. Whether I agree with you or not is not the issue. It's just the fact that I need to get to know you first. And, you know, that to me is going to change a lot of what's going on right now. It'll
Right.
change all of our futures if we could do that. So
Right. So here's your website. People can connect with you, and you've written a book.
I have shameless self promotion.
Oh no, it's all personal, man. It's all personal, right? So,
I have written a book. So
um, and so I really appreciate this. As you said before, our first meeting face to face, it was over a couple hours. So we can talk out some things. We can have a conversation, and
you
so
absolutely can.
I really appreciated this, and this is something that I I really want to inquire about, I guess, the maturity of, of self and making things personal, keeping things on the personal level so I can make a difference on a grander scale for my relationships and for the things that I care about. Because within the things that we care about and that we're passionate about are, are how we show up. If we don't have that personal connection to it, you can tell me all day long and we won't be there. That's just my take on it. But thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it. I appreciate seeing you again. It's been too long. So
Right.
um,
And
hopefully we can continue these conversations uh, into the future. So,
absolutely. Thank you very much. If you can, I'll put you back in the green room and I'll say goodbye there. Wow, that was great. I think it's all personal, and I was thinking that when people say don't take it personal or nothing personal, it's really they're really denying you. You know, they are reducing you. It feels that way, and I want to find ways of taking that out of my vocabulary and kind of using that because even though I don't understand, even though I might not even have an appreciation of how the world is showing up for someone is personal. And the more that we recognize that and appreciate that and respect that, the more that we can have the connections that we want to have. And I think that we are designed to have. The world wants you, the world needs you, and the world is waiting for you. So go be you. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow.